It always feels big when the Dallas Stars and Minnesota Wild meet. Two teams looking for a massive Central Division win tonight. We'll break it all down and plenty more on today's episode of Locked On Stars.
You're Locked On Stars, your daily podcast on the Dallas Stars. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, Stars fans. I'm Joey Erickson, former producer of 105 Through the Fan. Please be sure to subscribe. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. And as always, thank you so much for making us a part of your day and making us your first listen. A Central Division rivalry like no other. The Dallas Stars and Minnesota Wild taking place tonight at the American Airlines Center. But Minnesota will be without their superstar, Kirill Kaprizov. We'll update you on that and more on today's episode, and we'll play Shooting Star on a Friday edition of Locked On Stars, which is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. So this news came out about an hour and a half ago from the Minnesota Wild PRX account. Kirill Kaprizov did not travel to Dallas, and he will not play in tonight's game. It's listed as a lower body injury, and he is day-to-day. The Wild are also without Joel Erickson, of course, who's an important part of their center depth up front for the Wild. He is out as well. He missed the first meeting that was in Minnesota when the Stars won 2-1 at the XL Energy Center. And if you remember, Minnesota was dealing with a couple of injuries during that one as well. And that will be the case once again here this evening. Jake Middleton has an upper body injury. He was put on the injured reserve December 13th. So the Wild are going to be shorthanded a bit up front, which will make it rather tough for them tonight in Dallas. But that will not matter for the Dallas Stars, who have had their issues with really any team so far this season. But it does give Dallas an opening and a chance to take it to Minnesota tonight that is without two of their most important players. I cannot tell you how important Joel Erickson and Kirill Kaprizov are to the Minnesota Wild. And you understand that. Kirill is really on his way to a Hart Trophy this season, has 20 even strength goals this season. 20 even strength goals. He's got 23 on the year, 50 points in 34 games. He's been absolutely spectacular. 3 Dallas Stars have double digits in even strength goals. It's Duchesne, Marchment, and Rope. And you have Kirill that has 20 himself, and nobody else on the Wild has more than 9 even strength goals besides Kaprizov. Boldy is there with 9, along with Rossi. We're going to get to some of the lineup changes as well for the Dallas Stars. I guess there is no lineup changes in terms of who's in front of the netminder, but Jake Oettinger will be the starter tonight for Dallas, which is no surprise against his hometown team. Growing up in Lakeville, Minnesota, he usually gets the start against Minnesota, and he usually has really, really good outings against the Wild as well. But this is a great opportunity for Dallas to cut in to the Wild's lead in second place in the Central Division. They have 46 points in 35 games. Dallas has a couple of games in hand. With a win tonight, they can be within 4 points of Minnesota for second place. So it is a big game for Dallas in the fact that they can make up some ground here in the Central Division against a team that's without their superstar and really probably their third best player. You could put, I would put Ek at, I would probably give Boldy a slight edge. But in terms of importance, probably your second most important player, Joel Erickson, for what he does for the Minnesota Wild. I remember a few years ago, he was kind of thought as a meme for how bad he was. He's turned into one of the elite, really two-way center icemen in the game. He's really underrated, such a good player. So they're without two of their most influential players in the lineup. This is a chance for Dallas to get out and win. They took control of the game in Minnesota found a way to win 2-1 against another shorthanded Minnesota lineup. I don't think Spurgeon was in that game as well, but who cares? Take care of business and get the job done. So Jake Oettinger in net for the Dallas Stars tonight. No lineup changes in front of him. So we'll see Maverick Bourque with Robo and Rope, which I think is starting to marinate a bit, and looks like that could be a line in the near future. Hopefully Maverick Bourque continues to find his confidence, and playing with more skilled players will allow him to be more creative and hopefully pick up the point production. We did see Johnston along with Ben and Stankoven in Utah on Monday night. Of course, that was a trio we thought coming into the season was going to continue their dominance. Got off to a slow start, but they were reunited on Monday. Possibly we see that again. That line was so fun to watch last season and just took control of games in the second half. I mean, completely took control of games with Johnston and Stankoven. They both need to find their scoring touch a bit more, especially Stankoven. Boy, he cannot find a way to find the net. It's not without the lack of chances for him. I think he leads all rookies in shots on goal this season. It's just a matter of finding Twine. Hopefully they can get their scoring touch going coming off a 3-day break. Welcome back, by the way, to Dallas Stars Hockey. Hope everybody enjoyed their little Christmas break. So we'll see what Dallas will muster up in terms of their lineup in front of Oettinger. Pizza Boer has been changing things up a little bit, but the power play units who were working pretty hard this morning at morning skate have not changed up very much. The first unit consisted of Miro Heiskanen. You had Jamie Benn. You had Jason Robertson, Rope Hintz, and Wyatt Johnston. So those five continue to be on. Those five continue to be your top unit. On the second unit, you did have Harley, Dodonov. It was Marchment, Duchesne, and I want to say Stankoven. So they're not mixing up personnel much on the two units, which we've sort of come to expect, no matter how abysmal the power play has been. But they are practicing it. They are working at it, obviously, because it hasn't been good enough. Maybe they get a spark here against Minnesota, where they usually find a way to pot some special teams goals. For whatever reason, when these two teams meet, they find a way to get it done. They were 0 for 1 in the first game, did not get a lot of looks, but they outshot Minnesota 40-23 in that game. They had a really, really strong night in Minnesota. If you get one of those efforts and that type of game out of Dallas here this evening, you're going to have to feel pretty good if you're a Stars fan. If I recall, they really took it to him really from the outset and had a lot of good looks. I think Gustafsson was brilliant for Minnesota. He really has been all season long, but this is a really, really, really massive game for Dallas. Not so much Minnesota, who's sort of taking care of business. I said on Monday against Utah, it felt like a must win, as much of a must win you can have in late December. Tonight feels almost that way because of Kirill Kaprizov and Joel Eriksson being out. But let's not fool you here. Minnesota is going to have pride, and imagine the confidence it would do for the Wild if they're able to beat Dallas on the road without their superstar and Joel Eriksson. Imagine the confidence that would do for a Minnesota Wild side. So, yeah, we can take care of business even without 97. So this is a very, very, very important contest tonight for Dallas, who's 20-13-0. Minnesota's 21-10-4. Both teams are sort of middling here over the last few weeks, so I'm sure the break did both sides a bit of good, and I'm looking forward to tonight's game. By the way, I will not be able to put out an episode tomorrow or tonight. I'm back in action with the ice race. 3 games this weekend, but I should have a episode out on Monday following the Sunday contest against Chicago. So be on the lookout for that as well. So just doing a little preview for you today on a Friday episode. So Kirill did not travel. Joel Eriksson didn't travel as well. This comes from Michael Russo, who's actually a great follow in general, not just Minnesota hockey. So Minnesota Wild fans are not looking forward to tonight's game without Kaprizov and Joel Eriksson. But obviously a gigantic game for Dallas, who can hopefully find a way to pick up a couple of points. So there you go. There's some of your lineup additions. Jake Oettinger in net. No lineup changes in front of him. Matt Dumba has still not been activated off the IR as well. And Liam Bichsel was recalled from Texas, which is just paper transactions. We sort of know that's happening, but they loaned him back to Texas for a few days over the break, and now he is recalled from the AHL. And of course, he will be in tonight. So there we go. A big Central Division rivalry. There's some of your updates. We'll preview the Wild a bit more, dive into some of their lineups, and we'll do that in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by PrizePicks. If you love sports, you're going to love PrizePicks, the best place to turn your sports knowledge into real money. Whether it's hockey, football, or any of your favorite sports, PrizePicks makes it easy to get in on the action. You can now win up to 1,000 times your money on PrizePicks. Plus, this holiday season, they're giving away $30+ million in rewards during Picksmas and offering 2 free picks in December. And when those picks hit, PrizePicks makes it easy to cash out. You can get your money in as fast as 15 minutes. This week on PrizePicks, I'm eyeing the hockey board, looking at Jack Hughes for more than 4 shots on goal, or Timmy Panarin for more than 1 assist. It's so simple to make picks and have fun with friends while potentially cashing out. Download the PrizePicks app on your phone. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNHL for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Don't even have to win. And that's right, $50 instantly. PrizePicks, run your game. So the Minnesota Wild without Kirill Kaprizov and Joel Eriksson here this evening in Dallas. And they have had a tough time beating, in particular, the Winnipeg Jets and Minnesota, or I should say Dallas Stars, rather. They lost to Winnipeg, Utah, Florida, and Vegas recently. They're 1-4 in their last 5. And that win was over the Chicago Blackhawks. So they have been middling here recently, and a lot of that has to do with some of their injuries and not having a fully healthy lineup. And they've also played some really good competition. I mean, you look at their last 10, you got Anaheim in there, but LA, Edmonton, Vegas, Florida, Utah, and Winnipeg, they've all lost to them. They did beat Utah in a shootout in one of those games as well. So they're 4-6-0 in their last 10. Dallas is 5-5. So 2 teams that have sort of been inconsistent, and Minnesota obviously got off to that really hot start. Then they started running into some injury troubles, and they're coming back to earth a bit, but still a very, very dangerous team, despite not even having Kirill and Joel Eriksson. So you're going to see a lot of Matt Boldy and Marco Rossi. Those are a combo that have been paired together along with Matt Zuccarello. You're probably going to see Johansson, Goudreau, and Hartman. That's sort of their big checking line. Then you got Foligno, Hustadinov, and Trenin. That's another sort of checking line, but can provide some offense. And then you have your 4th line with Ben Jones, who's a young guy that's made quite the impression. Devin Shore, former Dallas Star. Their back end is always going to be tough when you got Faber, Brodin, Chisholm, and Spurgeon. It's a really, really good top 4. And Merrill and Bogosian for your 5 and 6 defensemen isn't terrible. I know they'd rather have Middleton up in there, but Merrill and Bogosian will be your 5th and 6th defensemen on that 3rd pair tonight for Minnesota. Their top 4 is good, though. I mean, Brodin and Faber, one of the best pairings, really, in hockey. Chisholm and Spurgeon, who don't get a ton of love either. So their top 6 is obviously a bit different without the two in the lineup tonight. But you're going to see a lot of Matt Boldy, who is a special talent. I mean, he's big and burly, just such a good power forward. And Rossi, who's really found his game last season, but is now really starting to break out. They do have Zuccarello, of course, who I've always been a big fan of. Man, I wish Mats was in Dallas. He was only in Dallas for like 13 games, I think he ended up playing, including the playoffs. But man, I always loved him when he's with the Stars for that short amount of time. Such a good playmaker, and he's been dealing with some injuries here as well recently. But 19 points in 22 games is nothing to scoff at. He's been productive when he's been in the lineup. Philip Gustafsson, who's having a Vezina caliber year. He's 15-5-3, 2.28 goals against, and .921 save percentage. His backup, of course, the famous and Hall of Famer Marc-Andre Fleury, 2.81 goals against average, .898 save percentage with a 6-3-1 record. I believe Gustafsson will be getting the nod tonight in Dallas, and he could play a huge factor. Dallas has ran into some hot goalies here recently, so for the Stars' sake, they're hoping they can make Gustafsson look pretty pedestrian here this evening. So that's what's to expect out of the Wild. Without Kaprizov, their leading scorer is Boldy. He's got 30 points in 35 games. Marco Rossi and Matt Zuccarello follow him, and of course Gustafsson and Fleury in net. So it'll be a good test again, no matter what for Dallas. You can look at some of the head-to-head categories. Power play, Minnesota's at 17%. They've been struggling recently. Dallas, of course, is 15%. Penalty kill, again, Wild cannot figure out the penalty kill. 30th this season. 30th at 69%. Of course, Dallas is in the top 5 at about 85%. So a struggling penalty kill, especially on the road. Can Dallas take advantage of a struggling PK? And they're without some of their big boys up front, like Joel Erickson, who is rather important to their penalty kill as well. You can look at some of the road and home splits. On the road for Minnesota, their PK is 75%. That's 27th in the NHL. At home, the Dallas power play, however, is not very good, and you don't need me to tell you again. They're 31st now. Philadelphia is worse at 10%, but Dallas is at 10.3. Hopefully, this will spark something. Maybe coming out of the break, they can take their frustrations out on the Minnesota Wild. So Devin Shore and Brendan Guntz have been recalled by Minnesota as well yesterday. So they are expected to be in the mix here this evening as well. A lot of stuff happening coming out of this little mini 3-day Christmas break. You look at the goals against and goals for percentages. Minnesota is 19th in goals for at 2.94. Goals against, they're 6th at 2.69. Dallas, of course, still above 3 in goals per game at 3.15. They dropped back to about 15th. They're now just outside the top 10. Defensively, they still have been decent. A lot of that has been goaltending. Dallas is 4th at 2.58 goals per game. So there you go. There's sort of a little breakdown of what to expect tonight. It's a 7 o'clock puck drop at the American Airlines Center on Victory Plus. A gigantic game for the Dallas Stars. Minnesota without a couple of their big guns up front. Robertson has 6 points in his last 5 games, which is a good sign. Hopefully he can start to score a bit more. It's almost unreal to think he only has 7 goals this season. He's on pace for what? Like about 25 goals this season, maybe just over. So, man, if he can get going and Wyatt, I'll say this. I thought Monday could possibly be a turning point. I've said that before this season, and it hasn't happened, but there just seemed to be a a different energy and spirit about Dallas on Monday night in Utah. For whatever reason, I don't know what it was, but DeBoer shuffled up the lines, and it felt like for once it sort of actually materialized into something positive, and hopefully a positive move heading in the future. Better play, just better scoring in general is my hopes, and maybe that can continue tonight. And yes, even a win against Minnesota without two of their best players is huge. It really does not matter, and you can't apologize for taking care of business against a team that's down a few of their big guys up front. But on the flip side, you look at Minnesota on the road, not really expected to win. That's a dangerous team. That is a really dangerous team. And the confidence it could do for the Wild with a victory on the road in Dallas, sort of what the first game of the season series sort of did for Dallas, where they weren't down all their healthy lineup, or they weren't down anybody, but going in on the road and beating a good division opponent is always a big deal. And as I alluded to early, Minnesota has struggled to beat the Stars and Winnipeg. I think it's been a couple of years since they even have a win against one of these sides. So Dallas would love to keep that streak going here tonight. So there you go. There's a quick preview of this Central Division rivalry, Minnesota and Dallas. Always a good one, old versus new, and could be big in terms of a standings little bump here for the Dallas Stars, who are looking to get back into the third position in the Central. Colorado, who Dallas has 3 games in hand, is playing Utah tonight. So, of course, that will determine if Dallas can jump them in the standings as well. All righty, enough of the breakdown. It's now time for your favorite segment, Shooting Star. Get those picks in via the YouTube community tab. Let me know in the comments below who will lead the Stars to victory. I have mine. I'll share it with you in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by Rocket Money. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That's definitely happened to me. We have so many subscriptions nowadays, and Rocket Money makes it easy so you can track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances, a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. We all have so many subscriptions we have to pay for nowadays, whether it's Netflix and Hulu, and you got to get ESPN Plus, Victory Plus, which is not a subscription, by the way, which is fantastic, but Disney Plus, you name it. You have so many. Just to watch one of your favorite shows, you have to get 3 different subscriptions, it feels like. Rocket Money helps you keep those all in order in case maybe you're not using a subscription anymore that you forgot about. It will show you. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Shooting Star on a Friday edition of Locked On Stars. The fan votes have been very, very solid recently for the wonderful listeners of Locked On Stars. You guys have a couple in a row here heading into the Christmas break. So a big pat on the back for you. I am struggling. I'm like Stankoven. I need to find a goal, and that is why I'm going with Logan Stankoven tonight as my shooting star pick against the Minnesota Wild. I said during the preseason, scored a couple against the Wild in the XL Energy Center. I said Logan Stankoven will haunt the Minnesota Wild for years to come. So we're doing it tonight. Stanky gets the job done. He gets a much-needed goal It's been a while for him. So I'm going with the stank machine here this evening. We got to look at his goal drought. What has it been? It has been a while. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games. So not terrible, but man, he needs to start potting some home. He did have no, excuse me, that's not 7. I was looking at the beginning of the year. It is much longer than 7. I apologize. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11, 12, 13, 14, 16 game goal drought. He just has 3 points, 3 assists during those 16 games. So there you go. I'm getting Logan Stankoven off the schneid. Let me know in the comments below. And as always, vote via the YouTube community tab. That'll do it for a Friday edition of Locked On Stars. Be sure to find out your fantasy hockey experts on Locked On Fantasy Hockey as well. I've been diving into fantasy hockey this season, really for the first time in my life. I've had an absolute blast. I go to Locked On Fantasy Hockey every single day. Make sure I get my lineup set. Those waiver wire pickups, those are always good as well. So be sure to check out Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Thank you so much for making Locked On Stars your first listen of the day. Have a wonderful Friday. Hopefully enjoy a Stars victory tonight. We'll be back on a Monday edition. We'll see you. Enjoy the weekend. And as always, so long, Stars fans.